This week's episode is brought to you by Adorama Picks. From photo books to prints on paper, metal, or canvas, Adorama Picks can help you to preserve and display your most precious memories. This week, you can save 30% on beautiful framed prints. Look for the code below. And Lumoid. Lumoid is a try before you buy service for all sorts of consumer electronics, from camera gear and drones to fitness trackers and audio equipment. They have an extensive inventory of photography and videography gear at very low prices. Check them out at lumoid.com/photorectv. This week's episode is brought to you by...
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 80. Welcome back everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
How are you? How's the cat? I thought then you told people what this show's about.
Oh, sorry, I was too busy pausing. Every week we bring you photography news, we bring you Instagram challenges, and we answer your questions live at the very end of the show. So if you have a question, post it in the chat right now, and we will add it to our queue.
And this week, you didn't bring you, as in those people out there, but me, a pretty big present I get to open in a little bit. I'm excited. It's that holiday season. That's why I'm wearing my Festivus shirt. All right. More specifically, tonight we're going to be talking about, well, that big present I get to open. The fact that Twitter wants to be more like Instagram. Samsung and Nikon are not in bed together. Are we happy or sad about that? We'll talk about how we feel. And I promise we're not going to waste your time with idle chit-chat unless you pay us.
What?
Even though I already read that earlier, you still... Was that a real what? Yes, because earlier this week I watched... Now see, there's different ways you can feel about this. But I happened to listen to a podcast earlier this week on the topic of photography. And the people hosting the show did not actually start talking about photography-related things until about 15 minutes into the show. Now, there are people out there that watch. They don't really care what we're saying. They just like to see what the fat cat on the table is doing and how we're doing. You know, those are nice people, I agree. But then I think...
But at the same time, I feel like we do, for as many comments we get about critiquing, criticizing our audio and everything else, we get just as many comments complimenting us on the content of the show. So I think that's kind of worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, well, that's what I'm trying to say is we want to bring you that content right away.
Yeah. And
save the idle chit-chat for our wonderful Patreon supporters.
Hey, you know what? We skipped introductions.
We did? Mm-hmm. Who are you?
You go first.
Oh,
you always go first.
I'm Toby, photographer and educator.
And I'm Christina. I'm a full-time wedding photographer.
That's right.
And we already told you what's going to happen, so we're not going to do it again.
No. But I was going to mention that we're not really going to talk about audio. I think we've got that fixed. And some of it may not have even been anything we were in control of. YouTube acknowledged some error on their parts. The live out of sync issue. YouTube has responded to me about that. They said it's a known bug, they're working on it, and that you all should refresh your player. I said yes, but people told us in the chat that they refreshed the player and it was still out of sync.
Yeah.
They said, sorry, we're looking into it.
So as we said before, if there's an out of sync issue in the future, we're just gonna keep rolling because the recorded version will not have the same issue. So yeah, we're sorry if that happens in advance.
Right. Oh, when people think I might be talking about Jared Polin and Raw Talk, I'm actually not.
It was completely different.
Completely different show. He does
Nobody
that too,
on YouTube,
but,
right?
That's his thing. That's completely his thing. People watch that for his stuff.
Okay.
So, one other thing I wanted to say though, I think a lot of people are interested in the gear we use for the show, and I've updated my rec gear page to list out exactly what we use on the show and how it all works together. I'm not asking for feedback from you all, but if you're curious in knowing how this goes together, you might want to take a look at that. We'll make sure it's in the show notes soon. Speaking of the show notes, they're all going to be linked right down below this video. All of those wonderful article news stories that Scott and Roy and myself actually put some in there, as well as also Chris from the Nikon Corner we'll be talking about.
All right, now let's move on to In Case You Missed It. So what did people miss this week? First, if you guys haven't gone and watched our gift guides, go and do that. Not right now, but like after this. What's today? 3. Yeah, today was the third.
Third day on the third.
And
day
tomorrow will
Christmas,
be the 4th.
when true love came to me.
So watch those and send them to your friends. Oh.
There you go.
I thought you meant a different kind of high.
Oh, no. So, yes, share those out with folks, friends, family. We'd love to see lots of people watching those. I think they're great. We're excited about the rest of them coming. One other video, not gear guide, that I put out last week was how your live view focusing system works in your camera. Sometimes I make videos because I think they're helpful. Sometimes I make videos because I get questions often and I want to refer people to those. And this is one of those videos where I get that question, why is my live view so much slower? Is it broken? And it'll be nice to send to people to those. And I don't have a name for that character I kind of dress up in and you see briefly. I'm embarrassed to extend it any longer. But maybe Professor Camera, maybe you guys in the chat can come up with some better suggestions or in the comments of what that lab coat wearing, good-looking mustached guy should be called.
Mr. Mustachio.
You trying to do too many things over there?
I am.
I want to add to the gifts for photographers. One of the comments, Jing, says they watched our video, the photography gifts for under 150, and they are so happy they bought the Mi Photo backpacker, probably before the gift guide came out, because they says it's a great little tripod. I recently went on vacation to the Caribbean. It helped me take a lot of pictures. It's so durable and small. Great recommendation. So yeah, thank you, Jing. We love hearing back from satisfied people. Can I say this? I'm going to say this. I'm trying jinxing myself right now, but in the years I've been doing this show, not necessarily this show, but all of my videos, I've not had a single person write back to me and say, I really wish you hadn't, really wished I hadn't bought such and such on your recommendation. I'm sure there's some unhappy people out there, but nobody has actually ever written to say that was a bad idea.
Cue all the people who will now write to you.
It's a holiday season, people. Be friendly.
Be nice.
That's right. We also use this segment of Week in Review to mention that we're going to be on the Northrop show tomorrow night.
Yes. We're very excited about that.
What do they call their weekly show?
I think Live with Tony and Chelsea.
Live with Tony. We are going to be on Live with Tony and Chelsea tomorrow, and we're super excited about that.
So in case you don't know about them, they are also professional photographers, and they have a great YouTube channel with great tutorials and gear reviews. Tony does lots of really great technical reviews.
He gets very technical.
And and we're going to be on their live show tomorrow and hanging out with them tomorrow. Right. So tune in. Yep. I think it starts at 5.
That's right. It starts at 5.
Yeah.
And critiquing wedding photos.
We will have a link to that down below. So, tune in.
That's right.
All right. What's next?
Now we move on to that section of gear on the table.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's ironic. We have a ton of stuff in the office right now for review, and we're really only going to talk about this one little guy right now because it fits with a news story. This is the DXO One. It is that little camera that plugs into an iPhone with a modern iPhone.
My iPhone.
Not the historic iPhones of old yesterday. You've used it a little bit.
Yes.
Let me give my opinion I haven't really used it, but I don't like it.
I don't really like it either.
Why don't you like it?
I don't love that. First of all, the connector it's like kind of difficult to figure out how to get it on and how to put it back into its place.
Have we broken it?
I don't think so. No, we have not broken it. If it's I like simple things, and if I have to spend too much time twiddling with this thing,
too much twiddling.
Yeah. Also, the app isn't that awesome. It just kind of lags a little bit, and it's not very intuitive. So I guess you can just press the shutter button to get to the screen, the viewfinder screen, or the live view screen. But I wish it was just a little bit more intuitive. I haven't honestly, I haven't spent a ton of time playing with it either. Just have used it a couple of times, so I will definitely be spending more time with it, as well as the Olympus Air. But so far, I am liking, even though it's a little bit bulkier, I'm liking the Olympus Air more.
I really like the Olympus Air.
I like the idea that this connects to the phone, though.
That's
what I really
Charlena
like
says
that.
it's ugly. It's not, and yeah, it's not very pretty. I don't know why it doesn't extend down anymore. That does make me feel like, oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
Back in. And other people in the chat are saying, you know, it would make your phone a good bit bigger. It does.
Not as big as the Olympus Air.
Not as big as
so
the
that's
Olympus
what I
Air.
like about this.
But this really does feel like a gadget that you would have for a while and then you might use for a year and then not much after that. That's what I'm always trying to figure out with gadgets. We'll be posting some test shots and samples from it soon. As people in chat have said, DXO One, they are really pushing it. I mean, we talked about when we went to Photo Plus, their booth was ginormous, and that was the only product in it. Their booth was bigger than Sigma, with all of Sigma's lenses, and so it's just interesting to see.
All right.
I wonder what the second version will bring. All right, so moving from
Let's talk about.
little
We'll talk more about that later, right? Because there's a news article about it.
Oh, well, no, I did just want to mention right now, that's why we put it up here, that it did get a firmware update recently that included a 1/20,000th of a second top shutter speed.
Pretty crazy.
Better handling, too. So we need to
I'm
check.
gonna try that.
We need to check if we've got the newest firmware on there or not.
Yeah, we will do that.
Okay, from this little camera to my big present. Are we ready? I'm excited. Can you move that so I don't spill water electronics onto fat cats?
Yes, I can.
So, Christina got me something, and she told me
Should you move your computer too?
that I should open it on the show.
You're gonna kick Liam off the table. We can't have that.
So, let's just, without much fanfare, I'm pretty excited. That's a little bit lighter than I would expect, but, well, let's just open it up. What do you think, Liam? Thumbs up if you have a cat that likes to get into boxes. Is everybody watching me cut towards my face right now? Like a fool? Okay,
What's
put that-
Liam doing? Is he interested in the box at all?
Yes, he is.
Liam!
Oh,
It's a cat!
it's cat.
It's
not
not
a cat. It's Liam 2.0. Oh, there's some of that stuff. There's some of that stuff. There's a lot of room in here. Oh. Oh.
Somebody guessed? Oh. Somebody guessed what it is.
You got me a drone! Ah. You're the best. Let's take a look. This is pretty exciting. This is the Proto X Nano drone.
You said you wanted a drone.
Just what I wanted. Now, it's a little small.
It is. It's like a lot small. It's really small.
It's going to be a little challenging mounting the GoPro on there. Let's open it up further. Maybe some of this we might save for the after show.
I think we should. I think we should save the unboxing for the after show. Let's do that because we're
Okay.
gonna start to run late.
That's so exciting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that my only Christmas present?
Yep.
Why did
that's
I
all you
open it
get.
so early?
You wanted it. You wanted to.
All right. Well, that was exciting.
I don't know how to close this.
Keep an eye out. Stay tuned for the after show. We'll take a look at that more.
Greg says, "How did she know? He barely mentioned it."
That's called a woman's intuition.
Sure.
I saw people in comments from earlier videos saying, I hope Christina cures his drone cough. Because if you remember, there were a couple of times where I said, so.
Okay, so that was gear on the table. We're gonna move on to news. And what do we have first?
First thing is a Verge article that Canon should make a digital mirrorless version of its famous AE1 camera. Now,
Why is that?
Well, this caught my eye because, well, The Verge is Verge's excellent tech news article site. They cover everything. I find it really interesting when a general news place like this covers something fairly specific about camera and digital technology. And the fact that normal people here, they talk about how Canon has missing the boat big time in the last year with mirrorless. Nothing really often, yes, Canon has those, EOS M2, 3, whatever. Nobody talks about them. They do not sell well in the United States. They sell okay outside the United States as far as I can tell, but not impressively so. And so, what does Canon need to get back into the game? And this article is about taking that lovely old rangefinder. Now, you've never shot with this film camera. I haven't either, but it is beautiful. Are we sharing my screen at the moment? Or were you? It's got just this fun classic Canon look. It looks a lot to me like an Olympus, one of the Olympus models, except this would obviously be bigger. I think they recommend that it would be a full frame. I think they should make both a crop and a full frame, and they need to get good focusing. So the rumor is a big push from Canon in mirrorless in 2016.
And what's the argument for a rangefinder? Just that it's pretty?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it has that kind of retro style that is appealing to a lot of people. The Fuji has sold well. Actually, I compared it to the Olympus.
Small.
Maybe the Fuji X-T1 would be a better,
Liam sees the box.
Similarity comparison. So, we'll see. I feel like I got my stool got moved back in the whole amazing unpacking box.
I think it's a testament to how much this cat loves us that he is on the table with us and not in that very appealing large box.
Yeah. But people can't see much of him, can they?
No, I guess
so
not.
I'd love to hear from you all. Do you think Canon is going to come in strong in 2016 with mirrorless, or are they going to continue to dribble out these offerings that are just kind of okay? That's what I'd like to know. That's the question.
So next on our news lineup is, last week we talked about Nikon possibly acquiring Samsung's mirrorless line, and that turned out not to be true.
It's being denied by Samsung. So we had a couple of different things going on. We had the whole story after story in the preceding months saying Samsung was done. They were pulling out of camera business in Germany. They were pulling out of it in Denmark or Europe. Then I think we heard rumors of Asia. I might be making up stuff now, but it sounded very dire for Samsung's camera industry. And then came this post of, Nikon's going to buy them. And that sounded pretty exciting, I think, to some people because there's a lot to love about the NX line. It packs a lot of features in there. And then some people said it was a partnership, and then some people said that makes sense why Samsung would pull out of these other places because they're going to get bought by Nikon, so don't want to have a competing product on the market at the same time. And then we're hearing it's not true. And we're hearing that we will see Samsung NX replacements at CES in January. That's very early January. I don't know how good a job we'll do of covering CES this year because we will be in Yosemite enjoying ourselves with the McKays. But we'll do the best we can, and it'll be interesting to see. I really don't know. It really sounded like the NX line was done, and now we're hearing rumors that it's not. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. Next up is, one second. So the title of this was submitted by Roy. If you are using Liquify, hold off your Adobe CC Photoshop upgrade. Why?
Yeah. It's kind of a cluster bloop.
Why?
There's bugginess. It's all of this. I wanted to talk about this article kind of as a whole, not so much this because it's such a specific thing. Yeah. But on the whole, we have this issue where they're doing these faster upgrades, adding these little features like the Lightroom, revamp of the import module, and they are in effect kind of like breaking it, making the program not good by pushing out these new features. And so we're definitely seeing some cons to this model of renting and just a quick click to update. and I don't know. You know, I feel a little burned. I'm not a wedding. I was not editing tons and tons of weddings, but I know there were a lot of wedding photographers. Now you don't have to push the upgrade button. I'll say that. But there were a lot of wedding photographers back, you know, in September and October that had pushed the upgrade button and were quite unhappy with the changes in Lightroom.
In Lightroom, right.
Oh, and also you have this bug on here with the latest version of Lightroom that I had to fix today. I didn't really fix it. These log files are just ballooning out of control.
Yeah. Right. Well, and the other thing about upgrades is, yes, it's a benefit in some ways, but at the same time, it's kind of annoying to have to do an update every week. Like that, I find that really annoying about Apple. I feel like whenever I do an Apple system upgrade, like within the next week, it already asks, or iTunes, or Spotify does the same thing. Like, I don't want to do an upgrade every time. I know that I don't have to, but I also don't want to be prompted to do it. It's just kind of annoying. So I don't love the idea of doing like very frequent upgrades, especially if they're, you know, not necessarily tested thoroughly and they're going to cause issues.
Yeah.
So
I wonder. I hope that Adobe is learning from these mistakes and will take, you know, a step back and be a little bit more careful. But on the other hand, I look at these programs; they are getting so complex with so many features that, you know, how can you completely thoroughly test across all platforms for all graphics cards? You know, so it's a challenge, and it's an argument for looking at alternatives as well. I think they're coming on strong. I just got a response from the Alien X guys, so I'm going to get to try that software out. I have the Capture Pro Phase 1, Capture One. Thank you. Capture One Pro version 9.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at that.
All right, so let's move on. Handy Vision announces 5 new full-frame E-mount lenses. Are you excited about that?
I am excited about this. You know, having more options is nice. Some of these are quite affordable. These are all coming in early January. 2 of them maybe a little bit later. They're fairly fast lenses, and I think they're going to be a good bit cheaper than other ones. So if you share in my screen, we can see we've got a 35 millimeter f2.4 coming, a 50, these are all f2.4, so I'm not gonna read that each time, a 50 millimeter, a 75, a 24, and a 90. I wonder if those are listed in the release dates because there is no other logical order to the way that was listed. Prices between $480 and $660. So again, it's nice to have a third party. I don't know. So this is good. Are these autofocus? Does anybody know? I don't know. The product is compatible with Sony E-mount and Fuji mount, but it does not correspond to iris autofocus and electrons. However, the smooth focus ring can freely control the focusing at their own will. What a nice way to put a spin on, this is a manual focus lens. So they are manual focus. I would like to see some more autofocus lenses from third-party makers for Sony. That would be nice. We need, you know, I go back and forth. I want to make a video about Sony lenses. There are no cheap options. The expensive options are excellent. I'm not saying they're a bad value, but I think that really is a drawback for some people. It holds them back. They say, oh, look at these lenses, I have to shell out so much. Well, if you're going to get a camera that expensive, yes, you're going to have to shell out lenses to make it worthwhile, but it would be nice to have some cheaper alternatives to throw on that are also autofocus.
Yep.
This is a cheaper, more affordable. Is that a better way to say it? Can you pass me whichever water is mine?
The one that doesn't have a lipstick stain on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see. Oh, so now we're on to quick news.
Wow, we moved right on down to quick news already. So, Twitter is going to change their photos. Now, typically, if you post a photo into Twitter, it crops it, and it really doesn't care about your form factor. It just kind of chops it down into this little sandwich that fits in the Twitter window. They are now testing, and it sounds like they're going to release uncropped photos a la Instagram. The other day I was scrolling through my Twitter feed and I thought to myself, this is a lot like Instagram. It feels extremely visual. Almost every post in my feed was a picture.
Well, I feel like, you know, we're very visual And the more that we're on social media, the more we become, well, the more visual we become.
That's right.
You know,
Yep.
like I find myself just like scrolling down and looking at pictures, and
I watch you do that.
when I see something interesting, then I read it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of how that's how a lot of people
Yeah.
browse.
So I think this is a good step forward.
Yeah.
I use, this is only slightly related. I use a if then, what is that? If then.
If this then that.
If this then that.
ITTT.
No, there's an F in it.
No.
I think there's an F in it.
ITTT.
That allows it takes my Instagram posts and posts them natively to Twitter. Which the pro of that is people on Twitter get to see the picture without clicking. I think that's a pro. The con of that for me is then there's no incentive for those Twitter people to come over and follow me on Instagram. So pluses and minuses, but I think it's a nicer experience for most of my users at this time. So that's what I'm going to do for a while. There's a lot of great systems out there like that. The if then this that else, and a buffer as well. Some other solutions. So.
Next in the news, Sony inks a deal to acquire Toshiba's image sensor business.
Yeah. Hey, we're in the quick news.
Yes.
That's all of it. We read the headline.
And the last one of the news that we have lined up for today is actually something that's really interesting. So the U.S. National Park Service has announced a gig for Ansel Adams' job, and it pays $100,000 a year.
What does that mean, Ansel Adams' job?
Well, I think that's partly a marketing strategy. You know, like they're trying to find the next Ansel Adams. So somebody who will photograph the national parks and basically just make really great imagery to advertise it, which I think is really smart. It's a great marketing strategy.
They do want somebody shooting film, don't they?
Do they?
Yes.
Oh,
you
I had
didn't read the
no
article.
idea.
You
No, I
read it.
didn't
yes,
read the
they
article.
do want you to shoot film.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Black and white film?
I think it's
large format?
Well, you know what? We're in the quick news section, but let's click it and see what it says now, since neither of us really read the article. All right. If you thought film is dead and that there's no money to be made in nature photography, you better think again. This is from DIY Photography. And the position is posted on USA Jobs. It requires at least 25% of time traveling, 5 to night. Wage varies between $63,000 and $99,000. Following duties are expected. Produce large format photographic documentation to the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the HABS/HAIR/HALS permanent collection at the Library of Congress. Is there anybody who loves acronyms more than the government? Maybe the military. Develop photographic guidelines. Okay. Produce exhibition quality prints. Well, I guess we covered it right there. Produce large format. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be film.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
It seems kind of weird.
I guess there must be more somewhere, but people are believing that this means film.
Yeah. Well, I think large format. I think the only way to shoot large format currently is with film. You can't shoot large format in any
okay.
in digital.
Okay, right.
So that's probably
I was
why.
thinking of the term large format being general, but it means a specific.
I think so. I think that's what they mean.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, nobody's going to apply to this, so I'm sure
What do you mean nobody's
it's not
gonna
going to be
apply?
very competitive at all.
Yeah, I know, right? Right. What did I want to come back to? Oh, okay. Well, I want to touch on, Chris sent me this nice email with the Nikon news, and I could tell, Chris, that you're a heavy Tony Northrup watcher because you like the DX1 or the DXO mark. You reference them a lot in this. Just mention the Nikon's been tested by, the Nikon 24mm f1.8 has been tested by DXO. They really liked it, found it to be sharper than the Sigma 24, which we found to be excellent. They've also tested the 24-70 VR f2.8. And that lens, we're excited about it because Canon doesn't have one. That is a 24-70, which is that classic do-it-all focal length, VR and f2.8, nice and fast. DxO, not so positive about it. Got some frustrating focusing sharpness variations across the range, necessitating a fine-tuning.
Necessitating?
Thank you, necessitating.
All right, let's do photos from space.
Photos from space. This is amazing. And Chris actually works with the company, Chris, who just referenced the Nikon stuff, who worked on this satellite that took some of these photos of Pluto. NASA has released this week the highest resolution photo of Pluto ever. We're sharing this? Amazing. We are looking at this kind of glacial lake up against these mountains on Pluto. That's mind-blowing. Look at this detail. That protoplanet or planet or dwarf planet, whatever you want to call it, is so far out there.
It's pretty incredible.
Look at this picture.
It's pretty incredible.
It's better than some of the satellite imagery we have in sections of Vermont. I feel like no satellites ever fly over Vermont. That's not true. I feel like you could see the little Martians right on the beach with their little umbrellas, bathing in the icy baths of... Here, listen to the name. This is the shoreline of Sputnik Planum. Greater blocks. Does it say what? The latest image forms a strip 50 miles wide on a world 3 billion miles away. It's crazy
very
stuff.
cool.
That's cool. Thanks for sending that, Chris, and thanks for the Nikon corner.
All right. Hey, you know what we didn't do? We didn't...
And a reminder that the Great Meteor Shower, the Geminids Peaks, is coming up in a couple of days. What didn't we do, Christina? All right. We should talk about that a little bit. So we want to thank our sponsor, Lumoid.com, for sponsoring this show.
You want to thank our sponsor for sponsoring us?
Yeah, I do want to thank our sponsor for sponsoring us. As you heard at the beginning of the show, they have a huge range of photo gear. They also have the fitness trackers and wearables. They also have drones. They have a lot of different drones.
Not tiny, puny drones.
No, don't hurt its feelings. It's not puny. It's just nano. If you would like me, to get your hands on, not that I don't love this present, thank you so much. If you would love to get your hands on a more real-sized drone, they have those for rent. You can check them out, see if this is something that you want to try out. They have a whole section on their website designated to drones. So you go in here and you've got the DJI stuff. You've got this Code Black drone I've never heard of before. You've got the kind of fun parrot ones. And of course, what I kind of consider to be the drone everybody wants, the DJI Inspire. That's where the feet come up underneath of it. So you can rent all of these. You can rent extra parts for them, including spare batteries, all through Lumoid. And as you rent these things, you are earning credits towards purchase in the future. Now, not only this, I've seen if you follow Lumoid on Instagram, they have started these drone classes. Because we got a lot of regulations coming about the drones.
Oh, that's cool.
And you need to know what you're doing. And also, it's nice to probably have somebody around. Like the first time I flew the drone was with David. And it was really nice for him to say, all right, here's how you do it. And so my first experience with a drone was not flying it into a tree, which I hear from a lot of people is their first experience because they're like, why do I do this thing? And so you can hook up with Lumoid to get educated more about these classes. Also, let's come back to me for just a second, Christina. Come back to the screen. Let's just talk about their photo video gear because a lot of us are interested in drones, but most of us are interested in gear. So they've got all of the different things that you could want, from your big full frame cameras to your smaller, can you stop irritating the cat? Thank you. To your smaller mirrorless and micro four thirds. If you want to rent video equipment for the day, you've got something specific to do. You want the best audio, you got the Sennheiser wireless mics there, and a nice prime lens, full frame camera for capturing that. They've got Sony equipment as well. So you can try these things out. And again, you're earning credits towards buying down the road. So if you say, this camera is great, you've rented it a couple of times, and then you found it to be fantastic, you can put those rental credits towards purchase.
Yep, lumoid.com/photorectv.
Thank you, Lumoid, and we ask you all to go check them out. And, again, tell us what drone you want from their drone list.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like.
All right, now on to the Instagram challenge. So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. High key, I feel like we failed. Because poor Tim asked us last week, he said, give me an example of high key. Oh, never managed to do that.
Sorry, Tim.
We never even managed to put our own picture up, which makes me feel like a failure.
Sorry about that.
I don't like that.
Well, I don't think you're a failure.
Failure.
We're not to like.
Nice, Liam. Is it on us right now? Come on, Liam. Be decent. There are people watching this show.
Not to like sound like whiners, but we have had a lot on our plates recently, so
yeah, we're busy.
We kind of have to prioritize
I
things.
know.
So I'm sorry that we
know.
didn't. We'll try to do that better in the future. But anyway, so let's announce our winners. You go first.
Well, I thought you were going to explain high key, but I guess people are going to understand it. It's basically kind of think of it as bright, airy photos.
Yeah, like a photo that most of the tones are high. Does that make sense? The tonal range of photos is on the higher end of the histogram.
Okay.
Basically.
Let's start with your first honorable mention. I like how we switch up each week, whether we do the winners first or the honorable mentions.
I don't like unpredictability. This is from Dr. Evil Smeagol. Oh, Dr. Evil Schmeagol.
Oh, I read that as Drevel Smeagol before Drevel. Gosh,
okay.
Sorry. Okay. This is a little figurine.
So what I really loved about this was that you posted a behind the scenes photo, and
look at it?
I did. I did go look at it. I appreciated that you did that, and it was really cool to see how you took this. And it's a high key image, so I love that the light is coming from both sides. So
good even light, very nice and bright. I wish we could see the eyes. Haha, just kidding. Okay. An honorable mention from you?
Eduardo Jimenez. This is like a really cool house, but also your attention to detail with the lines and making sure everything is parallel and perfectly straight. Really nice.
This is what takes a photo from being like, oh, that's a nice photo, to being,
yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. And your winner?
From Gundatography. The Guggenheim Museum in New York City. We've actually been there, haven't we? There's that statue.
I don't think we've been to the Guggenheim.
I thought it was.
I have. When I was a child, I've been to the Guggenheim. But I don't think we have gone.
Well, I love all the neutral tones and the sort of monochromatic ness of this image. So
it's great. Fantastic image. All right, I want to start with one of my first honorable mentions from Heather. I actually told her she should enter this in this because I saw this in my feed. I follow her. She's another Vermont Instagrammer. And I'll be honest, I don't always love these kind of more softer focus effect, almost lens baby like, but this image really works well for me. And I love it, and I wanted to give it a shout out as an honorable mention. DJ Rock 66. I love everything about this image. The only if the skin could be a little bit more warm, I think. That's what I would like. I'm talking just a small amount. Fantastic expression though. Love it. I'd love to hear from you how you got them to make this perfect expression without over exaggerating it. Maybe your kid is just lucky. I'm sorry that they're too young to see the new Star Wars movie. That would annoy me too. So, my winner, I picked Eduardo's. Fantastic. Everything lines up perfectly. Everything. And that just makes the image fantastic. I can't tell you how many times I've taken, images kind of similar to this, and then I see something where it's just something's a little crooked and it ruins it for me. My own image, I love it. Great. Thank you, everybody who participated in this week's challenge.
Next week's challenge is colorful.
Ooh, who made that lower third? It's so colorful.
I don't know, some really creative person.
Yeah.
Meantime, Liam takes a bath on our desk.
That's right. All right, so let's see, going from these kind of high-key monochromatic, many of them were very monochromatic. There were a lot of fantastic ones in there. People did a great job. You want to see these images in more detail? You want to see past challenges and winners and honorable mentions, looking for fun people to follow? Check it out, photorec.tv/PRTV. We'll have all of that information there. And as I mentioned last week, this is like the most consistent thing we've done on this whole YouTube channel is run this challenge every week. So, yeah. And if you want to follow us, there we are. There's our social media. We love it when you follow us.
And don't forget to hashtag your photos with PRTV_colorful.
That's right.
All right, let's move on to our discussion. So, if you watched last week's show, you got to hear all about what to do with your pictures. So that was part 1. Today we're going to talk about part 2, being gallery walls. So part 1 was making diptychs and triptychs with your photos. So if you have like 2 great photos or 1 great photo or 3 great photos, what to do with those, how to frame those, what to take into consideration when framing those. Today we're going to talk about framing, printing a grouping of pictures. So I have just a few tips to keep in mind when doing that. We have partnered up with autoramapics.com to bring you a coupon to make it easy for you to get some really awesome prints of your work. And so let's get to it. Toby, feel free to jump in and add anything.
Okay.
I've written some stuff in the discussion
Oh, I
section.
should look at that too.
So,
Okay.
hint, hint.
Yep.
So first, one of my biggest pieces of advice when doing a gallery wall for your home is to keep the frames consistent. So that means that you're either going to choose like 1 color or 2 colors, maybe 3 colors if they go really well with each other. Some recommendations for colors, if you're wanting to try different color styles, are like wood with black, maybe gold, wood with black and white. So things that go well together but are different. And so keep all of your frames in that sort of range. So have multiple blacks, multiple golds, and multiple woods or whites or whatever.
So you shouldn't have any odd ones out. Is that what you're saying?
No, yeah, no. It's got to be very, it can't be too dominant if it is. So the other thing is if you wanted to keep to 1 color, you can still add kind of texture and interest by switching up like the widths of the frames as well as the kind of frame. Like some are a little bit more ornamental, some are a little bit simpler. So you can switch that up and it'll still look cool and different. But it'll have a little bit more interest.
It should look very deliberate.
It should look
whatever you do.
Right. That is the goal here, is to make it look deliberate.
Okay.
So tip 2 is to make sure if you're printing your own images to include like close-ups that maybe show a little bit more detail, and then landscape, like wider shots, so that you can, together with all of these pictures, kind of tell a story.
Oh, we talk about that a lot for photo books, but you can do it on your wall as well, and it really does grab people's attentions when you can have a couple of photos that all work together to tell a story.
Yeah, and if you have other pieces that aren't necessarily your photography, that are other works of art that you have, that you've collected, that you really like, feel free to add those in, so long as they're consistent and have similar textures and colors and things like that. You can refer back to last week, part 1, when we talk about like the style and content of the photos. My 3rd tip is...
Give them a little breathing room. About 2 inches, you say?
Have one featured... Toby's jumping ahead. Have 1 or 2 images that are... that act as featured images to kind of anchor the whole wall. So maybe pick 1 that isn't too dominant of a picture by itself, but that you can print large and then sort of frame everything else around it. You always want to have a focal point, otherwise it'll all look kind of scattered. And don't feel like you have to put the focal point in the center either. You can put it off center as well. Are you doing the unboxing now? You're gonna leave it for the after show. What are you doing?
Well, I think it needs to be charged, so I was gonna try to make it. Sorry.
So it's fine. You can do what you want. And the last tip. Leave at least 2 inches of separation. And this is kind of a loose rule because depending on the sizes of the frames and such, you might want to change up the spacing in between them. I'm sure that's a really pleasant sound for people to hear.
I'm sure it's quiet.
Yeah, so just leave a little breathing room. Give them a little breathing room.
I mean, we say that same thing within the pictures themselves. You always want to give your subjects a little bit of breathing room from the edge. The subjects now are these pieces of work on the wall. You want to give them a little bit of breathing room from each other as well.
Yeah. So, thanks a lot to Adorama Pics for sponsoring this segment. And if you wanted to print any 16 by 20s, use the code down below.
It's a long code. We're going to put it on the screen.
Yeah, AdoramaPics.com. Get 30% off a 16 by 20 framed print.
And we got 20% off other sizes as well.
Yeah, both of those links will be down below.
That's right. And you have until the 15th of December to take advantage of those savings. The biggest friction for me in getting my pictures on the wall is that step of like figuring out the frame. And it's so nice. I'm lazy. I am. I'll admit it. It's so nice to sit in my chair, click and say, that frame looks good. The idea of going down to the local frame shop and walking around with the picture in the hand when I can just do it digitally is really nice. And so their little frame system online lets you do all of that. It works so well. I love it.
Everybody wants you to charge the drone. So by popular demand, you have permission to make that happen. But you cannot fly it until the after show. So
okay.
That is my only rule.
Oh, it might take stupid batteries.
And with that, we are going to move on to the final section of the show, which is the live Q&A. So we've got a few questions posted on here already, but feel free to add any others. First question is from Craig Lance. He has the Canon T4i with STM lens and doesn't know where to start with video. And he has 2 kids and have 2 kids or pets. So,
yeah, go ahead. You're a video expert. Christine, you want to answer it?
I'm not. So I'm going to...
How do I know if it's charging?
I'm going to defer to you.
Craig, start with it on A. Put it on A, flip the switch all the way to video mode, and just start shooting some video and see what it does. It does a pretty good job. Really, in video, your hands are a little bit more tied in all of your settings you can change, mostly your shutter speed. Your shutter speed should be about 2 times your frame rate. So if you go into your frame rate settings on there, you can shoot at 30 frames a second or 24 frames a second at 1080. And I think you should go ahead and shoot at 1080. So if you're shooting at 30 frames a second, your shutter speed should be 1/60th of a second. Now, if those of you paying attention, you can easily get to longer focal lengths that are going to cause some blur if you were taking a picture. But because there's motion in here, that blur is much more hidden. So in a lot of ways, videographers can get away with slower shutter speeds than folks taking pictures usually. So that's a general rule of thumb. Have it generally center focus or near the center of the frame in live view. For my contrast detection, it doesn't make as much of a difference, but it still can help a little bit. And Canon uses that kind of hybrid CMOS sensor, so it gives it a little bit of extra help there with some phase detection stuff built in. That's what I would do. Now, it gets very complicated quick if you say you want to capture good audio as well. But if this is just kind of your kids doing stuff, running around, playing sports, then just putting on A and starting to shoot, or then putting it on shutter speed prior. No, see, it's going to change apertures. That's why I always end up back at manual, and manual not being that scary. Just figure out your correct exposure and start shooting. I would always shoot a little bit wider. That's going to help the camera focus if it's got a little bit more of a wide to the frame. As you zoom, you're going to cut that light, and it's also going to be a little bit harder to focus and keep people in focus. Yeah. If you're focusing non-moving objects, turn autofocus off, because otherwise, at times, it's going to try to decide to refocus for no good reason, and that's very distracting. If it's not a professional video, it doesn't matter too much, but I always find that a little distracting. Depends on your purpose. Shoot me an email if you want to talk about it in more detail. All right.
All right. And next question is from Tim. What is the image quality like for the Olympus TG4?
The image quality is excellent. It's a very good point and shoot. Certainly gets a little noisy in low light. I mean, it is just that kind of standard point and shoot size sensor in there. But I'm very impressed with the video quality out of that camera and its little brother that we took to Greece, which was the Olympus TG 860. Bets on what kind of batteries go into this tiny little remote. We're about to find out. Let's cross our fingers that they're AA.
There are more questions.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Any tips for photography in snow/night? Is both or?
That's a complicated, or that's a...
It's a loaded question.
Yeah. I have a video on my channel about photography tips for snow. The biggest one is don't walk through a beautiful scene before you take a picture of it. But you also want to overexpose a little bit, so making sure you are getting that snow as white and not gray. Tips for night photography. Yeah, that's one of those big open questions. I don't think we've really done a video.
What specifically do you want to photograph at night? That would be my first question. Yeah. But yes, we do need to do a general tutorial on night photography.
Again, you know, what is, in my mind, what helps in shooting in all these situations is shooting manual mode, because, and knowing a little bit about how your camera exposes, because in the dark, you're probably going to focus on some type of subject that is probably somewhat lit. And so your camera's going to be like, oh no, this is super underexposed. Raise your ISO to grain out the wazoo. And if you know what you're doing, you're going to be like, no, that's okay, because it's looking at the whole scene. Most of the scene is going to be dark, but my subject has a little bit of light. So you could also put it on spot metering, so your subject, you know, your camera is then the camera is really metering just your subject. But again, manual exposure, you can just say, oh, I know what it's doing. It's going to want to be a little bit underexposed for this, and that's fine for this image. So I don't have to raise my ISO so high.
Ben wants to know, Ben Wynn, if I want to use an old adapted 50mm manual lens on an XT1 to get an equivalent 85mm-ish, do you have any recommendations? His budget is $200 to $300.
The Nikon 50-1.8G, I think it is. It's a very nice lens, manual aperture ring.
And you could just get an adapter for it?
And you can just get an adapter for it. Yep. That's what I would do.
Do that. iDobbies, what is better, a cheap camera with an L lens or a good camera with a cheap lens? We feel like we've answered this question before. Definitely a cheap camera with an L lens.
Yeah. Well, it's not definitely, but all affordable and even cheap DSLRs and mirrorless today have very good sensors in them. They have sensors in them that people 3-4 years ago would have killed their mother for. Serious photographers. Is that too strong a statement?
That's a really strong statement. Okay. You better hope your mother doesn't watch this.
So can you see if you can unscrew that? I can't unscrew this little screw. That's it. Oh, I think I just got it, but you can try for a little while. So, you know, but there certainly is going to...
You're using a terrible screw.
There's going to certainly be some waste of putting an L lens on a cheaper sensor. But again, you know, we look at these DXO mark scores, we go, oh no, this one is in 20th place. 20th place is still capable of making amazing images. Amazing images if you know what you're doing and you take the time. So that's what I would say. Yeah, and it's what is the expression? 6 1/2 dozen of the other. Is that what it is? They're both pros and cons to both. Did you get it?
No.
Oh.
It's a little tricky.
That is a little tricky.
I need a rubber band.
You need a rubber band?
Yeah, could I have a rubber band?
What's a rubber band gonna do? You gonna MacGyver it?
It's stripped. The screw is stripped.
The screw is stripped. We're not off to a good start here. What kind of drone did you get me? Where did you buy this thing? I'm getting a little suspect of my present here. It'll fall off a truck. All right. How did you guys get started in photography as a business? We've answered this before. I'll answer it fairly quickly again. Christina apprenticed with another wedding photographer, and I think that is the way to go for most people. Find somebody in your area that is doing the type and style of photography that you want. I know that's difficult in some places, but see if they need somebody to carry stuff for them. Then see if they need, you know, work yourself up to shooting, and then start offering the same thing. In your case, you just worked with a fantastic Steve Holmes in New Hampshire, a fantastic photographer who's
Great guy.
been super supportive and helpful and good
I
teacher.
was so lucky to find him.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's necessary to find somebody who shoots in the style that you want. I mean, if you're lucky
That's
enough
true.
to do that, that's great. But I think that you can learn so much more than just taking pictures from a person who runs a business. You can learn, how to run a business, which is actually probably like 75% of what you'll actually be doing if you do become a photography business owner. So, do we have AAA batteries?
AAA?
Yes.
Not AA? We might someplace. Riley, could you hand me in that blue box that's on the second shelf to the left? Yes. Everybody say hi to Riley. Riley's in here helping out a little bit behind the scenes. You can't see him, but he's doing a fantastic job of finding AAA batteries. Okay. Thank you, Riley.
Let's see. Where were we? When does the Adorama Pix code expire?
December 15th. You have 6 days.
December 15th.
6 days.
Roger wants to know if Adorama printing is available in the UK. I believe it is, but you probably have to pay money for shipping internationally, which might cancel out the discount. So you should check it out, though, see if it's worthwhile.
I think they do, but it does get expensive to be shipping.
Adrian Hess wants to know what's the minimum focal length on full frame to shoot the moon? To shoot it well?
Yeah.
Probably like 400 with an extender or two.
I know.
I mean,
first off, you can crop a ton up. I've got a video about that, or a blog post. 200, 300, the moon looks pretty darn puny most of the time. Get it down near the horizon, get some horizon in there, can help it seem a little bit larger, and again, crop a ton. But if you're talking about you want to take fantastic, mind-blowing, kind of like that Pluto shot we saw, maybe not quite that, 600, 400, 500, 600. 600 is where it really starts to get exciting. William Stone, who's an Instagram and fan, he posted some pictures. He's recently picked up the Sigma 150 to 600, I think, or is it Tamron? I can't remember. And he's got some great moon shots out at 600 focal length. Again, those are still cropped as well. The amazing ones I saw around the blood moon time, those were done with a 1200. I mean, just, that's a whole lot of millimeters.
Yep.
All right. I can't see questions. I could if I looked over here.
Yes.
It's not looking good, folks.
Is the Rokinon 8, 14, or 16 the best for night photography?
I have not used all of those. I've used the 14. I like that focal length. That's kind of a sweet spot. 8, you're getting very wide. And in some cases, you don't want so much of the sky, especially if you live in some places where you've got a city off on one side. You're going to get so much that you're going to get a lot brighter in that area. But if you're going out into total darkness and you want that kind of planetarium, Milky Way stretching out above you, then go for that wide. Otherwise, I'd go for the 14. 16,
I personally really like the wide planetarium look.
So you'd go 8. You would go 8?
Well, on a full frame, maybe not.
Okay. I can look on my own thing. Can a good night photography be taken with an APS-C sensor? Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, people would have killed their mothers. All right, we've decided that that's too much. These sensors are fantastic. You can take fantastic shots at night. I don't know if you mean the stars or if you mean people, but you can. You can with a D3300. You can with the Canon T5i, T3i. You can do it. It gets easier with full frame sensors because you don't have to leave the shutter open quite as long, so you don't have to worry about star trails if that's what you're talking about, but you can do it. Don't use the gear as an excuse. I'm not saying you're doing that bug out, but just letting people know.
Ryan Ramsey wants to know, he mainly dabbles in sports photography. What do we think of the Canon 7D Mark II or the 70D, or is there a better option?
Well, we got to figure out what dabble means. The 70D is perfectly fine to dabble in sports. When we actually never published this, but we went and shot a hockey game, local, not anybody. And we did the 70D and the 7D Mark II side by side. the number of in-focus shots from the 7D Mark II were significantly higher. That camera's focusing abilities are a serious step up from the 70D. And so if you're talking about focusing on faster moving sports, more erratically moving players, the 7D Mark II really does a significant job. The 70D, it can do it. High school sports where they run a little bit slower. Poor high school people. Everybody is in high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that was the last question, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, we didn't talk about this. The giveaway
Ended today.
Yeah. When
Fantastic.
will we find out?
Next week. We're announcing it next week. David and I have
next
to
week.
push the button, and it's really exciting about that. And
yeah.
we got really exciting stuff coming in the new year as well.
So if you don't win, don't be crushed.
There's more things happening.
So don't forget to watch Live with Tony and Chelsea tomorrow at 5. Link to that will be down below.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. And that's it. Whoopsies.
Thanks so much for watching. Go get your framed prints from Adorama. Tell me what drone you want from Lumoid. And we'll see the rest of you in the after show starting now.
All right, we're back.
We are back. Do you want to put it up now? And then people will think they get to see a moment of the after show. And then we'll say...
Where is it? I don't even know where... Did you put it in here?
After Insta... Oh, no, that's not it.
No,
After show. After show PNG. That one. There you go.